Grow a spine and stand up for your fellow Americans.
All right, let me introduce you to Captain Dylan Blaha, National Guard, also running for a congressional seat in Illinois. He's setting young service members up for a trap here. Consult your attorney. He's not an attorney. I'm not an attorney, but this advice seems incomplete. Like he's missing something.
I'm a 13-year U.S. Army veteran who served in Afghanistan and wrote war plans while stationed at U.S. Army Europe. This morning, Donald Trump directed Pete Hegseth to deploy the U.S. military to Portland, Oregon. This is the latest illegal attempt to normalize the use of the military in U.S. cities. He authorized the military to use, quote,
He leaves a lot out here. This is recent video telling young service members and, of course, generals.
Is authoritarianism. Military is not a law enforcement force, and all federalized service members must abide by the Posse Comitatus Act. All members of the United States military must disobey illegal orders. I was just following orders is not a valid defense against war crimes.
He leaves out the most important point of this when he respects the Posse Comitatus Act, which is the Insurrection Act. Again, he's leaving out really critical details for young folks or active duty to make decisions on, because he's got a big platform. He's got authority as a captain. He's got authority as somebody running for Congress in Illinois, and he's saying this without huge parts of the puzzle being inserted to make a decision. Because I don't think anybody as active duty wants to get a dishonorable discharge, maybe go to Leavenworth, no GI Bill, no VA benefits, your employment is severely limited. And he says this before this recent video. Stand by.
Otherwise, you are complicit in this fascist takeover. We're running out of time. How does a soldier know if they received an illegal order?
How does a soldier know? Well, in this case, if you're going to go down this path, maybe you should consult your attorney. If you're going to take advice from him, I think it'd be very wise before you make a terrible decision, right? I mean, hear me out. Again, neither one of us are attorneys.
My name is Captain Dylan Blaha, and I'm a U.S. Army veteran who served in places like Afghanistan and Germany. Service members must disobey unlawful orders. So what are some examples? To be unlawful, the act must go against the Constitution, U.S. law, or international law. For example, the Posse...
That means you got to know U.S. law and international law, right? So if you're getting an order, unless it just seems outrageous from your chain of command, you're going to go, this is probably a lawful order, right? I understand he's going to hearken back to the Nuremberg trials, but let's talk about today and getting young service members wound up to make bad choices. It seems like it's a little overreaction and leaving out's a trap, right? The advice he's given here would seem like a trap for young folks or anybody in active duty.
Comitatus Act bars federal military from acting as civilian law enforcement. However, National Guard soldiers activated in a non-federal status may assist civilian law enforcement depending on state laws. In many cases, a deployment itself is not illegal. Neither is being asked to guard a federal building. If you're a soldier activated in a federal status and you're asked to assist civilian law enforcement, this is an unlawful order.
That's interesting, again, leaving out a key element here of the Insurrection Act. I'm not a lawyer, consult one, but I can read, and it seems like he's making really sweeping statements. And his audience is geared towards young people in the military. And so if you're making a decision based on his advice, and he's got authority, think about it, there's troops below him that he's commanding. And this is the kind of advice you wouldn't expect from an officer. You expect the officers to do what? Give you good advice, protect you from getting in trouble, give you advice that is coming down from the leadership. What would you call this right here? If you had to define it, it seems like what he's doing here would violate several parts of the UCMJ. I talked about that with a Navy sailor who was saying things which were clear violations of the UCMJ, which would get himself in trouble. And he's giving advice that, from my perspective, would get any young troops or any troops in general in trouble. Oh, boy.
Military forces to remove or detain immigrants can also be an unlawful order. Use of the military against civilian protesters is an unlawful order.
When he says can be, again, there's a lot of fine points here. And he leaves out, from what I see, a lot of details. In particular, leaves out the Insurrection Act, which trumps other laws, right? Just the way I read him as a non-attorney. Again, he's not an attorney. I understand that he was in some kind of health field in the Army.
Only notable exception is if the president declares an insurrection. Unfortunately, the ultimate
which has been done. You may not agree with it. You don't have to agree with it. But I'm looking at it from the troop standpoint. And young people who are like hearing him, maybe agree with his position and they take this stand, they could ruin their life, ruin their military career, end up in prison, end up not being able to find work or get benefits or a whole host of things with clearly missing information, right?
Determination of what constitutes an illegal order always comes after the fact, either by a military court, a civilian court, or a war crimes tribunal. If you're in the military and you believe you received an unlawful order, call the GI Rights Hotline. Thanks, and have a great day.
What do you think the GI Rights Hotline would say about this? He gives a number up there. If you're active duty, call it. See what they say. They can hedge their bet and go, well, what's the order? And how many people are getting activated to the Oregon National Guard? They go protect federal buildings. What are they actually going to do, right? That's the question. Is it going to be like LA, where they're protecting federal buildings, and be like DC, where they're walking around? Now, it is dicey. Obviously, after the fact, you get burned for anything. You think it's a lawful order, and later on, you get in trouble. But in this case, boy, I wouldn't want to take that risk without really getting clear guidance. Like, he's telling me, Captain running for Congress, just don't do it without discussing the huge overreaching part of the law, which is the Insurrection Act. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Is this guy right on point? Is he showing strong leadership, or do you see any deficiencies in his argument? Let me tell you my opinion. He's very passionate about it. He's leaving out significant portions of the law here, just reading it on his face, and making pretty broad statements, which is setting young military members up for a trap. A trap is that they get passionate about it. They believe him. They don't want to participate in what's coming down from the chain of command. And they're going to say, well, it's an unlawful order. But if they do that and it ends poorly for them, he's not facing the consequences. Now, again, should he face consequences? Is this conduct unbecoming?